And this is going to be one of our show and tell episodes, which is kind of a sub-series that we're doing, where we share stories about shows that we've been a part of and developed, and what we learned from the process of developing a show and being a part of a show. And this episode, we are joined, well, I'm James Casada.
I'm Bob Wick.
Yes, and we are joined by a guest who will be joining us for the conversation of the show we're covering today. It's Pete Jacokes back with us.
Yay!
Hi, everybody. I'm back.
Yeah, Pete joined us for our episode about edits in long form. And so the show that we're going to be talking about in this episode is called Snow Day, and that is a indie production and a benefit show that you guys have run every year for going on 14 years to benefit anti-cancer causes. And so we're gonna talk about the story behind it and what you guys learned from the annual run of it and where you're at with it now and all that good stuff. So thanks for joining us, Pete.
Hey, glad to be here. Yeah.
And
Danny.
so let's go ahead and start with the backstory here. And this is, definitely going to be the longest history of any show, at least that I mean, we had Battle Prov with Bob, which stems all the way back to 2007, but this one's got a real long history and an ongoing history because it's still running every year. So I want to be able to cover all of it, but let's start with the very important origins and the story of how this came to be. Sorry. Actually, what we should do first is just give me like the detail description of it first. Let people know the answer to the question, what is Snow Day?
Snow Day is our annual 26-hour improv marathon. Yes. We start it at 8 o'clock on Saturday night, and we run it until 10 p.m. The next day. It is nonstop. There are groups going on at 2 in the morning, 4 in the morning, 6 in the morning, 8 in the morning, all the way through. There's always a family-friendly chunk. Lately, there's been a podcast section, and we always do a 24-hour sketch show where a group of writers and performers, based on suggestions that we get at the beginning of the night, take 24 hours to write an entire original sketch show, to write it, edit it, put it on its feet, learn the blocking, learn their lines, and then put it up. It's a large group of people trying desperately in their sleep-deprived brains to perform an entirely written show.
And it always closes with the 24-hour players, which is a group which
is even messier.
Yeah. No. It's a group of folks who have been with us the entire time, who haven't had the opportunity to take any naps. That's kind of part of the rules. You can't leave the building or the area. You cannot nap, sleep, or anything. You have to be totally without sleep. And we go up and we perform a 20, 25-minute set.
Yes.
Actually, most people in the troupe have probably been up longer than 30 hours.
Yeah.
Including me and Pete.
Yeah, because it's not like you get a full night's rest leading up until 8 p.m. The
Too much to do.
Yeah. But
mine's usually like a 42-hour marathon.
Yeah. And just to be clear, that's not required. That's people who either elect to do it or are running. You guys are always part of it because you're running the thing and end up doing it kind of by default as producers. But it's usually about half a dozen people who end up being up all night, and then everyone else is just keeping the marathon of improv going across those 26 hours. And it hasn't always been a 26-hour marathon. It's been that for about half the years now.
I will say, James, there is inevitably at least one person, like around 6, 7 a.m., who will come to me or Bob on the verge of tears saying, I can't make the full 26 hours. I'm so sorry. And we're like, we're not making you.
Yeah.
No.
You're not bound by any sort of agreement to do so.
Yeah.
Go get some rest.
Go home.
You're still getting paid the same. Nothing.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
The only two who are stuck are me and Bob.
Yeah,
right.
We can do a two-man if necessary.
But so it is at this point an annual marathon, overnight marathon, but it has not always been that way. So let's go back to that story of its origins and how this show came to be.
It started because in 2007, Bob was in. Were you still in classes at that point?
Yes. Yeah. It was towards the end, but yes.
And I had recently taught him, and I was at the time the home team at the Planet Ant Theater stage manager, and I was in charge of scheduling the groups for their weekly Monday night show. And Bob reached out to me and said that he had a friend who used to be in his class who was back in town for the holidays, and he just wanted to do an improv set. So I reached out to Hal Soper, who owns Planet Ant, and I reached out to Margaret, who's head of the home team, and I said, this Monday that's between Christmas and New Year's, we're usually dark. Do you mind if I put up a show? And we'll throw some money to the Ant. And I'll lock up when we're done. And they were like, yeah, sure. So we got four groups that first show. And Bob's friend did not come.
I forgot that's the story.
Yep. We did. We put this.
We don't see him till like Snow Day 5.
Yeah, we got like a half keg of beer and a couple of Amici's pizzas, and we just had a fun show. And it was like maybe the groups and like maybe 5 or 6 other people showed up. And then
and hang on, because I don't want to be insensitive to the context here, because I think that sort of sounded like he didn't show up because he passed away. This dude.
Oh, no.
No, he just straight up was like, can't make it, guys. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, man.
And he did,
doing a family thing.
End up showing up like to one 5 years later.
He showed up to one 5 years later, and the only thing I can remember from that was before he walked on stage, he spilled a beer on the stage.
What a guy.
No, before he walked on stage, I told him not to bring his beer on stage. He said, this is how we do it in LA, baby. Brings the beer on stage, puts it on the floor, kicks it over. Yep. Yeah. During an edit.
Okay. So sorry to interrupt. Please continue with the story.
No problem. So then the first three years, 2007, 8, 9, we did it at the Ant, and it was like 4 to 6 groups.
Yeah.
And after the first year, we expanded it to 6 groups, and then by the third year, it was standing room only, and the groups couldn't watch any of the improv. They had to stay on the second floor of the theater and watch it on a monitor because we ran out of room. And I think we even had to turn people away.
Yes.
And then right as we were like, oh man, this is becoming a thing. This is awesome.
Yeah.
We reached out to Go Comedy because it was a bigger space and we wanted more people to see it. So then we moved to Go Comedy, and it was still 6 groups. I think 6 was the max in the early years.
Yeah, because we're only doing it for that night. So
yeah.
We didn't want it to be
like you said, it's a lineup of 4-ish groups.
Yeah.
So it's like a 2-hour block or less.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 or 3. Yeah.
And then that first year at Go, it sold out. The second year at Go, it got close to selling out. And what's weird is that after the first, because it was me and Bob and our friend Sean were sort of the original 3 that organized it. Mm-hmm. After the first year, the 3 of us were never able to all be there.
Yeah.
Because like Sean had a relative that passed away, and then the next year Bob's, I think, was it your grandma?
A grandfather, yeah.
Grandfather passed away. And then the next year Sean was sick. And then Jen Hansen came on to help us organize. because Sean kind of stopped doing improv.
Yeah, I think that's about the time he moved to Chicago for business, not for,
And then a couple years in, we started. I think it was Dan Seco who was the first one who passed away from cancer, and we decided to rate. Was it? It was
before that.
Yeah.
No. So when we decided to make it a charity, it was Snow Day 3, because that's when we sold out and we had all this extra money, and then we donated because my grandfather passed away the year before. We donated to a charity in his name.
That's what we. Yeah.
Yes.
And then the next year, Dan Seco passed away, and so we took all the proceeds and donated it to is it Camp Keeley? No.
Yes. It was the camp to help kids who've lost parents.
Who've lost parents to cancer. And then
Michelle.
And then our friend Dan's fiance Michelle passed away, so then we donated money in her name. And then it just kept happening.
Yeah.
So we were like, let's expand it. And round about that time, Nancy Edwards reached out to me and said that she wanted to do something in honor of the 5th anniversary of her brother Tim passing away from cancer. And so we came up with the idea of a 24-hour improv marathon, and then mashed it with Snow Day. So there was 1 year that it was called like Snow Day Presents Fighting Cancer something.
Go for the cause.
Go for the cure.
Go for the cure.
Go for the cure. Go for the cure, not the cause. Don't go for the cause. Go for the cure.
Go for the cause.
Woohoo! Cancer. No.
So that was the Snow Day Presents Go for the Cure.
And then we did that for 2 years. Yeah.
We did that for 2 years, and then we asked if we could just call it Snow Day because everything else was a mouthful.
Yes.
And then it just became Snow Day. And then, so that first year we raised money for the Tim Hayden Scholarship at the high school that he used to teach at. And then we expanded it to his scholarship and Gilda's Club. And then we expanded it to his scholarship, Gilda's Club, and the American Cancer Society. And no shade to them, but 1 year I had to call them twice and then go to the building to ask them to please cash our check because they never did.
Really?
And
wow.
so we decided to not go with them anymore. And so it was an even split between Tim's scholarship and Gilda's. And then my mom passed away.
Yeah.
And then my mom passed away. And so now it stands, it's a scholarship in my mom's name at the high school she went to high school at, Tim's scholarship and Gilda's Club. So we split that 3 ways. And all proceeds go to those 3 charities.
Yeah, which is incredible. And so tell me about some of the work that went into when you decide to make it a charity. Are there stories that you remember about? It's a complicated thing. It's a surprisingly complicated thing to make something a charity or a nonprofit. And I mean, whether you're tracking down the organizations to make sure they cash your check, or you're abiding by whatever guidelines and rules you need to in order to make sure that it's adhering to nonprofit and benefit.
Well, what's probably embarrassing is that we've never gone full nonprofit.
Right. Yeah. So that's part of what I'm wondering about. But because by the time that you guys started doing the 24/26 hour marathons, you were able to partner with DECO, the Detroit Improv Collective, to collect that money and then donate it. And that's the organization that produces the Detroit Improv Festival. But up until that point, what were some of the challenges that you had organizing and executing the benefit and charity side of it?
Well, we're not an organized people.
Right.
No. I mean, James, you've worked with us. You know.
So honest to God, the fact that in those beginning years, the money got where it was supposed to go and not lost in a cup holder in one of our cars.
It's a Christmas miracle.
Is a miracle.
It's a snow day miracle. A lot of the time, it had to be put into my bank account, and I just would write 3 checks until we got to and then when we started working with Go, it became easier because they were kind enough to like do stuff like half the tickets would go to us, and like we got a different deal now, but in the beginning, so we kind of would just give them all the money and let them divide it up, and then they would get the the tax credit because neither one of us
once we like officially partnered with Deco, Casey Nadler, who's the
goddamn angel.
She's amazing. She is an amazing woman.
She keeps us in check for 26 hours once a year.
She is so great. Yeah, invaluable.
Yeah. As soon as we partnered with Deco, we were just like, hey, Casey, here's the money. We'll work on the improv groups. You take care of the money. Yeah. And then Deco writes the checks for us now. So it goes through that. I will say one of the biggest hurdles we learned was the first year we did the 24-hour marathon. We did it from Friday at 8:00 to Saturday at 8:00.
Oh my God.
James, you remember this.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we did a 24-hour improv marathon, and then no one realized that some of us had to work Saturday night. So James was house managing. I was hosting that night.
I did the showdown.
Bob did the showdown. Doug was in the booth. So like all of us were beyond fried, and we had to do 2 shows.
Yeah.
And I remember walking on stage to host the showdowns and being like, good evening, everybody. And on behalf of Go Comedy, I am so sorry.
Yeah. This
is going to happen. Yeah.
Just so you guys are, so you're all aware, a good majority of the people who are working tonight haven't slept since Friday morning.
Yeah.
Our bad.
Because the thing with the house staff too is that like Go Comedy being a theater that is only really operational, I think 5 nights a week. Unless you have like class shows that go on Mondays and Tuesdays, it really is only doing regular shows Wednesday through Sunday, and so the staff is smaller by design, so it's not equipped to be doing 26 hours, but then into another shift. So
I remember the next day, I was seeing my sister for some reason, and she was like, "Oh, how'd it go?" It's like, good. I'm so tired. We had to do the showdowns immediately after the marathon was done. And she just went, why didn't you do it Saturday into Sunday? And that was the first time that anyone had mentioned that as a possibility.
Yeah.
And I was so exhausted. I was like, where the fuck were you 2 months ago when we were working on this?
Yeah.
And at this point, you do it on MLK weekend.
So that people have Monday off.
Yeah.
Plus, that's usually when the snow shows up around here. So,
oh yeah. The past few years, there's been a straight up blizzard the weekend of our show. I remember 2 years ago, we ended up losing some groups from Cincinnati because the weather was so horrible. They couldn't make it.
And so tell me about that.
That's fun too. Too. When a group cancels and they're supposed to go on at either anytime Sunday or like beyond 5 a.m. Saturday, we're like, oh, okay. I remember one night I walked into HQ of Go Comedy and Chris Fortin and JR were working on a sketch.
And Donnie.
And I walked in, and Donnie, and I just went, hi, you guys are the next group. You're on in 10 minutes. Get backstage, come up with a group name. You guys are the best. Thanks so much.
So tell me about the aspect of booking the troops, and it's obviously a little easier in the beginning when it's fewer troops. But as it starts,
very true.
Let's start with the earlier years of it, because I imagine as it starts to get more and more popular, you have to be more and more selective with the troops that you're putting up there, and that there's a lot of people who would be interested in being involved for every reason of it being a good cause and a successful show. So how was it earlier in the progression?
Well, originally, when it was just the 4 to 6 groups, we would just pick them.
Yeah.
We would just reach out to the groups and be like, hey, we're doing this thing. You want in? And then we would pick, some groups, then we'd pick a headliner, like whoever the hottest group was going at the time. And then the first year that it was 24 hours, that was easy.
Yeah, actually making it 24 hours.
Really?
26 hours made it so much easier.
The first one was super easy.
Yeah.
And then after that, because of the ebb and flow of numbers of regular groups, we've never been wanting for groups, but we'll maybe cut 2 or 3.
Yeah. And most of the time, if we cut somebody, it's because they're in multiple groups. And a lot of the time, it's multiple groups with the same people. So it's just like, which version of you guys are we most familiar with? And we'll give you a slot.
And as long as the people in the groups that we cut, as long as we know for a fact they're performing in another slot, those are the ones that we normally cut. And then the biggest pain becomes organizing the groups, because the first year we accidentally had 6 2-man groups in a row, and then and everybody was doing, and then another 6 groups that were just doing a montage. So then we added the question when we asked people to submit, we asked them to tell us who's in their group, what form they're going to do. So then that way, when we schedule it throughout the 26 hours, we can put a montage and a herald and a 2-man group all in the 1 hour block, rather than have the same form open. That's usually the hardest part.
Putting the schedule together is one of my favorite parts of Snow Day. We get together on a Saturday. We get there early. We go into HQ, the office of Go. We get to there's a whiteboard in the back that takes up a whole room. We just sit there and we organize it. And the rules have always been, we try to get everybody to play. We try to get the most amount of people to play. We try to set up in blocks, because we sell, even though it's all one big show, everything is divided into 2 or 4 hour blocks. When
Except
we sell
from 2 a.m. to 10 a.m. That's one block. 2 a.m. to 10 a.m. is one whole block.
When we sell tickets, and with the goal of, if I were to buy a ticket and walked in at any time, am I going to see a good mix? I think people think that we just put all the old timers in the beginning and the end, and then use those as a bookend, and then fill it up with the new people and stuff like that. Which, I mean, it could make for an interesting show, but I want to mix it up. I want to see a little bit of everything throughout the night, because I'm there the whole time. I need to be entertained.
No matter what we do, no matter how precise we are with scheduling, we always get someone or multiple someones who are furious with their time spot. And we also compare the schedules. So if we know for a fact this group kind of got the short end and we're performing at 5 a.m., then we purposefully try to find them a better time slot the next year. And and I say try, sometimes I think there was one group that accidentally got 5 a.m. 2 years in a row, and we just somehow missed it.
Well, maybe because you're organizing 90 teams.
Yeah. But we also purposefully have me and Bob do our 2-man set at 4 a.m, so that if somebody's really upset, we're like, dude, we're in charge of the schedule, and we put ourselves at 4 a.m.
Right.
Which is great. And I think that
I'm sorry, 6 a.m. 6 a.m.
No, 4 a.m. because 6 a.m. is when who's still up plays.
That's right.
I got the schedule right here. No.
Either way, it's in the wee hours of the morning / night, and it is I think that it's hard because it's such an event that people look forward to. Not that people forget that it's for a good cause, but that you guys, do you guys charge a submission fee or anything?
No.
And you probably could. You probably could, honestly. But
absolutely.
We've had that.
We've had that conversation a few years where we're like, maybe it's time we should have a small submission fee, and we always end up with we got so many other avenues of of income. Let's not. We don't need to go there yet.
And if you ever do, it's it's still for a good cause, and especially because you don't already do that. There's really, it's just like, we want you to be featured, but we also thank you for filling out the commitment that we're making here, which is to program the full 26 hours of shows.
Well, another misconception is people usually, if you had to do a show at 3:00 in the morning, there might not be anybody there. But the last couple of years, 3:00 in the morning's been hot. That's the past at least the past 2 years, I know for a fact there has not been a single time where the theater was empty. Mm-hmm. Like there in the past, there were always like the really early shows, like it was staff watching. I know there were a couple of times where there was literally no one in the theater watching. But the past few years, there have been at least 10 people watching at all times,
which is great.
Like in those crap hours, it obviously sells out and picks up throughout. But we call them crap hours just because it's what we call them. But the like early hour stuff.
The hours where we always hit the joke like, can't wait to try to be funny at 7 a.m.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, you signed up for a 26-hour marathon.
That joke usually starts. That joke starts at 3 a.m. After 3 a.m., we get that joke a few times.
Yeah. Pete takes it better than I do.
This is true.
So that and oh man, it's snowing on snow day are my two favorite jokes.
My favorite is, oh, you look tired.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's 7 a.m. I've been here for a day.
Yeah.
All day. Yeah.
Tell me about developing some of the or the successes of building an audience for the show, and also finding ways to develop, things like the raffle and the giveaways and all those extra things beyond tickets that have come along with the marathon in more recent years. How has it been developing those?
I know the 50-50 raffle started as soon as we moved to Go.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
That's been there since our first show at Go Comedy.
And I believe we stole that idea from another fundraiser they were doing there. Like, that's an inexpensive way, basically no overhead other than the tickets, which are like $5 for a big roll. So awesome.
And then once it became a 24-hour marathon, we had a couple of meetings to like brainstorm, like the baskets and silent auction. And then we reach out to as many people as we could think of to get silent auction or raffle items. And in the recent past, Sue Durso came out of nowhere and makes these I can't even begin to imagine how much money she spends on these baskets that are a huge selling point.
Oh, the baskets themselves?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was Sue. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Sue puts there's 3 baskets. Last year she did one big one, but usually she's done 3 big baskets. It's like for 2 years in a row, she's given away a Nintendo Switch, which I'm like.
She puts all the stuff in the baskets too? I thought you were saying like she makes baskets and which is great. Very cool enough. But she puts all the prize items in
all that stuff.
That's donated from Sue.
Yes, she does that because to honor her sister who she lost from cancer. So she really believes in this this fundraiser and she just wants to.
We have begged her to let us pay her back, and she has refused.
She won't hear
That is incredible generosity and support from her, and how cool. I thought for sure that was piecemeal together. That's kind of what I was asking about. Like, how do you scrape all this stuff together? And
there are
a really cool story.
They are piecemeal.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
And the other big help is I come from a big Polish family, and my aunt is so sweet, collects money from them, and then she puts a couple baskets together. So between Sue and my family, and then other people who donate great things, like Gabber Media has been really cool about donating. There's always like swag from their different podcasts, and Matt has donated a spot to come and be a guest on one of their shows, which has been really fun. So
Cool.
That's been really cool.
And like we go to all the improv theaters in the area and put together a basket with swag from Pointless and the Ant and Go with tickets. Yeah. And yeah, all the theaters have been super supportive when it comes to helping us raise money. And yeah, it just sort of, that first year of the 24 hours, we just put out a wide blanket, and so many people were on board that it just made the road ahead so much easier for us to like reach out to even more people when needed.
Yeah, we were really lucky when it come to volunteers and people who are willing to volunteer over and over again. We've talked about Casey. Patty was a really huge help this last couple of years organizing the 50-50. Has always been, she has volunteered so much. She is now in charge of collecting and assigning and scheduling volunteers. Yeah. She is head volunteer of volunteers. And then there's always
she's also one who traditionally comes to me and apologizes that she has to go home and get some sleep. I'm like, you've been working on this for months.
You got here before we did. Yeah, go home. Go home. There's always like Doug and Bree is always a huge help. One year when Pete couldn't be there, Doug was in the booth for like all 26 hours because none of us know how to push any buttons.
And Bree being a manager is in the, I know those shoes as a previous manager, as well as like all the behind the scenes work by the staff is also incredibly generous gift of time.
Yeah.
As well.
Oh, Grant. I mean, that guy, we have to tell Grant to leave because he's working so hard, and he makes the rest of us look bad.
2 years ago, I walked up to him, and his eyes were so glassed over that when I said hi to him, it took him like 5 seconds to recognize me. And then we were finally like, dude, go home. He's like, I think, okay. Like, you're a good hour beyond when you should have left. Just for your own safety, go home.
Yeah. Well, so tell me some of the. I want to talk about two things before we come to a close. I want to make sure we have time to cover them both because I'm sure there's lots of stories involved. One being highlights of shows and people involved along the way in each show. And then after we talk about that, I would love to hear just about what you've learned looking at where it's gotten to at this point and where it started, things that are major takeaways that made it a success. And because not every even great cause event gets to get to the point that you guys have gotten this show to. So I want to talk about that as well. But let's start with some of the highlights of like shows and moments of the snow days.
Well, the 24-hour sketch show is always sort of a highlight. Just the amount of talent that goes into writing, editing, blocking a whole show in 24 hours, and everybody is always super excited and so on board with everything. And like some of the most ridiculous ideas come out of somebody doing a bit at 4 a.m. and then going, I'm going to scrap what I was working on. I'm going to write that idea instead. Disco Cats, which is a brilliant sketch, a recurring sketch that Doug has written that involves a very somber scene and then James running out in a cat mask and a cape saying meow, and then everybody goes Disco Cat.
Couldn't be more proud to have a role that requires less and has bigger payoff. Like that, all I gotta do is meow. But what about for you, Bob? Highlights?
Highlights. I really liked how we've really started since we started the 24-hour or 26-hour aspect. We always begin with a showdown, and it's been really cool the last couple of years that we've gotten really great guests like Dave Powell and I can't think of anybody. The guys from Hugs and Pull-Ups, John and Brian to show up, and just getting to play the showdown with like people from out of town has been really cool. I really love that.
The fact that we've gotten to the point where we're now starting to get out of town participants has been Oliver
comes in. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Oliver. God, yeah.
He comes every year.
He's so great.
And like one year he came, I think he did one set, but he stayed the whole time just out of support, which is just so incredible.
Yep.
But yeah, the fact that we've now been able to get people from out of town to take part in this kind of was that moment where I'm like, oh, this is actually kind of cool. It's not 10 groups with, the same 4 people in different combinations filling out the 2 to 6 o'clock block.
Yeah, and it's the best of both worlds, right? Because it's for a good cause, and it's also a good audience and show opportunity in its own right. And so, when you pair those two things up, you can really go a long way and feel actively as the show is going that like this is making a difference in awareness and just positivity, and also that the tickets are being sold and we are raising the money that we're setting out to raise.
And in spite of like we were talking about, people making that joke about 7 a.m. comedy, everybody from 2 days before we do the show, so when we all go home Sunday night, everybody is so positive about it and so excited. Even the idiots who do those the weather, like they're still super excited, and like almost nobody does their set and goes home. Everybody like will at least stick around for a little while and watch and support or whatever. It's been so cool.
Yeah. You can't make that joke unless you show up. So I can't be mad at you. And like the last couple of years, Natalie's been helping me. My girlfriend Natalie. So I've been learning how to be a little bit more organized. So that's been really cool.
Our production team has, I think, expanded to all of 6 people, which is a huge step for us.
Well, so which
really
is a good
helpful
transition to talking about those organizational elements that make it a success. Like looking at where you are now with the size of the event and where you started, like what would you point to?
It was an accident. It was a total accident.
Yeah, well, I'm sure there is a lot of it that is just like organic growth, but like, for people in other regions and cities that are like running similar events, what kind of advice would you give to them to keep going and to keep building?
I think the 2 biggest things was
we took a good team.
Yeah, but also like taking our time as far as expanding. Like we never rushed anything. Like there's always a bunch of new ideas coming at us, and we're really careful about initiating anything or biting off more than we can chew, because
the biggest change we ever had was going from 6 groups to a 24-hour marathon, which is a big step. But when we first did it, we had Nancy Edwards and PJ and Tommy, and I think Andy was managing at that point, the house manager. So we had a lot more people help us transition into the 24-hour. And then after that, we went back to our small group. And then every year, as soon as we're done and most of the place is cleared out, at least Bob or I will go, we should have done. Yeah, we forgot that. We should have definitely done. All right, next year. So every year there's at least one thing that we figure out, this would make things so much easier if we did that next time.
And I think the second part was we always make sure that we thank and show how much we appreciate everybody who helps, because we do get like a lot of the credit for stuff that we had nothing to do with. Like if Bree takes off snow day, we're really screwed. We need and like I hope everybody knows, and we like because they're volunteering. Like they don't need to do this, and it's just the kindness of their hearts.
The year that I missed was because my mom had passed away the week before, and my contribution was I showed up. I introed the night with Bob. I did a set with my brother, and then I just went home just because I was in no way in a mental capacity to be able to handle anything.
Of course.
And then I came back the next day to help with cues for the 24-hour show and to close out the night. And coming back and seeing that everything had run perfectly smoothly without me there. Not like I was such a pivotal whatever, but it was such a cool feeling to know that this thing, once it gets going, everyone who's involved in helping us takes such good care of what's going on that, like, if Bob and I needed to not be there, I'm confident that it would still run perfectly smooth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the people that we got helping us are so huge in helping it go.
Yeah, and that is the greatest sign of a successful operation is that it's not dependent on any one person or even small number of people to make it go, that it is a community group effort. And I always look forward to Bob's big thank you scrawl of a message in the Facebook group. And sometimes, I don't know if it always comes at the same time. Sometimes it's after you crash and sleep as much as you need to, and sometimes it's right before you do that. But it's just like this long, giant thank you. And
mine are always these simple, like, guys, thank you so much. I have to fall asleep. And then, like, Bobby actually takes time to thank everybody involved.
Yeah.
Oh, Facebook cuts me off. I have to sometimes I have to make 2 posts.
Do they really? Facebook has a limit? I've seen some long posts. I didn't even imagine that there was a limit, but you found it.
Have to cut and highlight and copy to make sure, because one year I got burnt. It's like, I guess you get your thank yous tomorrow. I gotta go to bed.
That's amazing. Well, that's such a nice. The fact that you found the character limit on Facebook's posts by the amount of thank yous that you were delivering is a nice fact.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, do we miss any major highlights or things that you would want people to know about Snow Day before we wrap up here?
If you're interested,
Come
hopefully
play.
we're doing it next year.
Yeah, and so
Improv Network, mount up.
Mount up.
Snow Day is in January. It's typically MLK weekend, and the January of 2021 is going to be your 14th. Is that correct? The 14th.
I mean, fingers crossed we can do it.
Yeah. Let's all hope that.
It will happen.
Yeah.
I guarantee it. No, I can't do that.
You keep those fingers crossed, buddy. Nothing is for sure. But
right.
we do hope that it can go off. And I imagine if for any reason it can't, that you would find another way to do it online or in some other variation. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Christmas in July. There we go.
There it is. Yeah. Okay, guys. Well.
I will say every year there, at some point during the marathon, one of us will go, why the hell didn't we call this Summer Day? And do it in July.
Summer Day. Oh.
Or summer vacation.
Yeah.
Spring break.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for sharing the story. It's something that I know a fair amount about, but I never get tired of hearing the stories behind it. And I think it's important to keep that backstory alive as you move forward, because just like the thank yous that you issue out every year, it's also nice to respect where it comes from and the work that's gone into it over 14 years.
I mean, as far as charity origin stories go, ours is pretty spectacular.
Unique. Yeah.
No other charity was like, we put on an event for a friend and they didn't show up.
For a dude that never showed up, yeah.
So we decided to make it into a huge thing.
We had half a keg of beer one night and made too much money, so we started donating. Next thing you know.
Very cool. Thanks again, guys. Pete, thanks for joining for the conversation.
Yeah,
Thanks for
Pete.
having me, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.